So I'm not going to put this up until we've got something in place that enables you, if you're being affected by this in your business, to fix it. So we can talk about how it should look, how we do this Facebook-like profile or whatever it is, how we distinguish the brands, and of course we'd want to explain on the website how to think about the different credentials that people have, but we also have to be ready to fix it when Bob calls. We can't let Bob fix it himself because, of course, that could create some problems if Bob isn't exactly as accurate as he might want to be. But we've got to do something. So this is a long-term thing, something we want to work on. But I think this is actually vital because in today's world of Photoshop, I could print up anything I want. I can find an IRS certificate that the CPAs I mentioned earlier, weren't thrilled about, but that's another story for another day. And I can make one myself. It won't be hard. So if we say to the taxpayer, just look for that certificate on the wall, I don't think that's enough to encourage, to prevent what I believe will be a lot of flim-flammery. So we've got to have something that matches, that makes that certificate match up to something independent, which would be this public database. It's just going to take us a while to do it. And that is an overview of what we're trying to do. Just to recap, so we have the numbers, and then we can take some questions. September 1, my objective is to have the PTIN registration or sign-up process in place. That I want everyone, whether you're an enrolled agent, a CPA, a lawyer, or unenrolled, if you plan to prepare tax returns for money next year, you need to come, you need to fill it out, pay the fee, and get a new PTIN, or as I like to say, Febreze the old one, whatever it is, so that we've refreshed that PTIN, so that we actually have as clean as possible a database to track for the coming filing season. Because one of my objectives, at least early on, we aren't going to get the exam in place. It's going to take some time to do this. But if we have those numbers in place for the majority of the filing season, we can start to, if you will, torture the statistics till they confess, right? We can start looking for patterns where we can identify problems with returns that are associated with a given PTIN. We can start looking at, are they geographic? What is the pattern, and how do we recognize it, and how do we address it? So getting data will be one of the key values of getting that PTIN in place. It will also set us up for the start of the continuing education availability, which will begin January of next year, and then the exam availability, which will be May or June. That's sort of the overall scheme, and I see some hands starting to pop up, so let me start with the gentleman back here and then the one next to him. Yes, sir.
The fee. Myself, I just renewed my EA license. I just paid it 2 months ago.
Yes.
I have to pay any fee at this point, or will you be paid for this?
No, you will have to, the next time, you'll have to pay the PTIN fee. But the next time you renew, you'll get a credit against, so basically if the PTIN fee covers everything and more, you will basically not have to pay anything, but probably a processing charge going forwards. Right. Well, the problem is I can't, one of the challenges I had is I got this report and I was like, someone said, oh, you get to implement. And I was like, oh, implement, that's easy. Well, what you find out is none of the decisions have been made, right? It's just all very high level. We're going to register people. Well, great. But below that are these kind of problems where there are timing issues and other things. So I'm looking forward. Now, back just a sec. I see the gentleman here had a question.
Is that 100% that OPR is going to administer this? There's no outside contracting?
So there will be several outside contractors. There'll be an outside contractor who does the PTIN app. There'll be an outside contractor who does the testing. In terms of how the IRS is going to manage this, we don't know the answer to that. Certainly OPR will play a prominent policy role, but this is sort of a several orders of magnitude bigger than what OPR does today. And I think Karen and Nadine would tell you that they don't have the resources or the structure to even do what they want to do with OPR, even if we weren't doing any of this. Yeah. So we're actually looking at how do we reorganize what we're doing, and how do we create an organization that's capable of doing this in a professional way that delivers quality, that is responsive, that is there when Bob calls. And I don't know what the answer to that is because it's going to take us some time, but it's got to be thought through, because it can't be that we're just going to staple this onto OPR and say go. Yeah, they don't, and that's on a good day. Over here. Oh.
As you're probably quite aware, we just had a
Mhm.
and the new Circular 230, and Nadine wasn't able to give us real specific information on when proposed regs will be out for a new Circular 230, but I'm wondering, with all of these new bodies to be educated, and with us, a lot of us serving education needs, I'm wondering if you have an idea of, or if you need more of an idea about Circular 230 and how all this is going to work as far as us being able to provide education to all of these new bodies, and what you see the timeline as being. Because she was kind of referencing very vaguely, maybe November for a new Circular 230 or maybe proposed regs. But
So let me get this straight. You're asking me the same questions Nadine asked, and I can't answer them either.
I was really concerned about how we're going to make this work.
So here's the thing. The Circular 230 regs should be out within a relatively short period of time, which I would define as within a couple months or less. What is the implementation time frame for those? It'll depend on what we get back from people. We've put out one set of proposed regs, right, which is the P10 reg that says you have to get a P10. We've heard from a lot of people who are saying things like, we need more time to read them. And my problem with that is, if you can't read 8 pages that basically say you have to get a P10, I'm not interested in talking to you. You know, come on, let's get real. The place where we're going to have to engage, where I am interested in listening and thinking about, is what's in the 230 regs. There will be a lot of moving parts, and we think we've thought through a lot of the issues, but there are, the only way you make those things actually hang together is when they're subjected to external views and people say, hey, have you thought about this? Or this will not work with the existing business model, whatever that is. So we're going to put them out, and we're going to try and set those up so they become effective relatively quickly. But if I don't know if there's a showstopper out there, and I am willing to step back. If folks come up and raise some serious problems that we haven't thought of, we're not going to rush to implement just because we have a timeline. With regard to CE providers, though, I think that Karen and Nadine can probably speak to this better than I can, but what I would say about that is, to the extent that there's already a professional body with professional credentials that's been delivering quality programs, when we're looking at all the potential providers, those are going to be the easier ones for us to sort of put through the system and say you're ready to go. What we do need to be able to do at the end of the day is have that program, the CE part, withstand, frankly, internal scrutiny from our IG. I already gave you the headline on the P10 side, but I could see one a year or two from now where they've visited several CE providers that have been, if we don't have a quality system in place, excuse me, that they've gone to take the courses and they rip them apart, right? And they will. And so we're going to try and have a reasonable structure in place, hopefully by January 1. All of the dates I gave you are not locked in. They're what our objectives are. So bear with me. Just right behind you. She's going to duke it out right there. So
you have a 2-tier testing system in place. How do you plan on monitoring those tiers and enforcing them both in the short term, which is going to be tough, but specifically in the long term?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. In the short term, probably not so much, right? There'll be guidelines. We aren't going to have the ability in the next filing season to say, or even in the 2012 filing season, it's unlikely that we'll be able to say, okay, you prepared a complex small business return, but you've only taken the initial basic exam. But I would imagine in the 2013 filing season, we'll be able to do that. And we'll have the ability to take the data and figure that out, hopefully in real time. That's what I'd like to do. What my ideal would be, that return hits the system. There's a P10 on it. That P10 has associated with it whatever set of criteria we have that shows which exams they are conducted or whatever you're registered to do or authorized to do. If those don't match, we may not reject the return, but my ideal world would be we send an immediate letter out to that return preparer that says, ahem, your exam qualities don't match what you've done on the return. And that's where I go back to those progressive touches, where we've got to think through how do we do that.